Dr. Rotama ma'am a lecture on writing a question paper. Ma'am, we are eagerly waiting for your lecture. And on behalf of IQAC, Sri Shankara College Karadi, Stride MHRD, MG University, and from the part of all participants, I welcome you, ma'am. I welcome you, ma'am, to this session. Thank you. Ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, dear friends. Am I audible? Slides visible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, thank you. Now we come to actually the last session related to the preparation of a question paper, how the Bloom's taxonomy can be implemented, can be used effectively for framing the question paper. What are the different factors to be borne in mind while we prepare the question paper? So with this, the preparation of the question paper will be finishing, and we will see something related to other assessment tools tomorrow. In addition to question paper, what all different things that tools and methods can be used to assess in the process of formative evaluation, like that. Okay. So when we come to the framing of the question paper, we have already seen the importance of taxonomy, fixing the outcomes, like that. Now, what are different factors that are important in the framing of the question paper? During the first day itself, we have identified certain deficiencies and problems related to question paper, the way by which they are framed, the framing of the questions, the directions given in the question paper. All these indicate that some modifications are required. So we will have some reflections related to that. Whatever things I am presenting here are not any rules or regulations related to framing of question paper. These are some suggestions that will help us to become more careful in preparing the question paper, so that errors will be minimized. That is the only purpose of these thoughts that we will going to discuss. I would like to bring your attention to an important news that came to almost all newspapers, especially in English newspapers during 2018. And it is very significant for us. The news is related to the court order of IIT examination, related to IIT examination. Let me read it for your information. The Madras High Court has directed the Indian Institute of Technology in Kanpur to give preference to candidates who have answered in exact numerical value in decimal notation, rounding off to second decimal place, to candidates who answered by rounding off values to one decimal point or without any decimal notation in the joint entrance examination advanced. Justice S. Vaidyanathan gave the directive while allowing a writ petition from Lakshmi Shri, who wrote the JEE in Chennai on May 20th. The petitioner said, see, this is very important. See the actual theme of the petition. Candidates were instructed to answer This is related to the instruction of the question paper. Candidates were instructed to answer in correct numerical value in decimal notation, rounded off to the second decimal place. So this was the direction of the question paper. See, there were some general directions at the beginning of the question paper, and one of the directions was like this: the correct numerical value, answer should be given in the numerical value, or any answer having a numerical value should be in decimal notation rounded off to the second decimal place. So the petitioner is arguing the full marks are to be given only if answered as per the direction, as per the instruction. It's clear. According to the petitioner, as per the instructions, she spent quality time to answer the questions by entering correct numerical value in decimal notation, rounding off to the second decimal. See the usage of the time, quality time. She spent quality time for what? For giving decimal notation, rounding off to the second decimal. So what is quality time for a student? Of course, we have to perceive it as the quality time, since the learner is spending 2 or 3 hours in an examination hall. This is the perception of the learner. It is the quality time for that particular learner. However, some candidates, without reading the instructions carefully, had answered with 1 decimal point, or without any decimal notation she added. See, what is the actual problem? Suppose the answer for a question is 11. Majority of the students will enter the answer as 11 because it is not an integer. It is whole number, integer 11, not a decimal number with fraction. So what will happen? The petitioner argues, if the answer is the integer 11, the answer should be answered or entered as 11.00 according to the direction. See the logic. The direction was ഏതെങ്കിലും ഉത്തരം, ഏതെങ്കിലും ന്യൂമറിക്കൽ വാല്യൂ ഉള്ള ഉത്തരം ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ അത് 2 ഡെസിമൽ പ്ലേസിന് എഴുതണമെന്നാണ് നിർദ്ദേശം. അപ്പോൾ സ്വാഭാവികമായിട്ടും 10ഓ 11ഓ ഏതെങ്കിലും പൂർണ്ണസംഖ്യകൾ ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ പോലും അതിനത് ബാധകമല്ലേ? കാരണം തുടക്കത്തിൽ പറഞ്ഞിരിക്കുന്നത് എനി ന്യൂമറിക്കൽ വാല്യൂ എന്നാണ്. So any answer with the number should be represented with 2 decimal places. Correct argument. So what happened? The Madras High Court directed the IIT to change the merit list according to the correct verification. So the mark should be given to those students who write the answer as 11.00. Otherwise, it will be 0. The mark will be 0. So the whole list changes. The merit list changes. See what happens in the field of education. What is the difference between 11 and 11.00? Absolutely no difference. But the whole issue becomes a very big issue. How? Just because of the lack of clarity of the direction of the question paper. So these possibilities are always there while we prepare question paper, and any student can approach a court at any time. കുട്ടികളിപ്പം സാധുക്കളായിട്ടിരിക്കുന്നതുകൊണ്ടാണ് വലിയ അപകടമൊന്നും നമുക്കതിരെ ഉണ്ടാക്കാത്തത്. But when we come to JEE or similar examinations, that is very important. That's why they are approaching the court. So this shows the importance of framing question paper in the right manner. From the very beginning till the end, it is the responsibility of the teacher or the person who is framing the question paper to make it very specific, make it very precise. So when we interpret this in terms of the academic aspect, we know there is no difference between 11 or 11.00. Why do we encourage students to go for these types of issues or cases? This all will reduce the credibility of the educational system, or the value question, value problem is there. But still, the competitive mind among the learners motivate them to do all these things. And when we analyze logically, so analysis and evaluation both comes here. Whether it is right or not, whether the court action is right or not, we say that it's okay because according to the argument, it's okay. And the court has to do this. So when we come to this, as teachers, it's our responsibility to frame question papers with maximum precision. So what we have to do, we have to analyze, we have to identify, we have to understand the clarity related to questions. So here we will have some discussions related to that. So in a question paper, there will be different types of questions. We usually write part A, short answer question, part B, sometimes there is a label like this, very short answer type, short answer, short essay, long essay, like that. I don't know whether it is true. What is the criteria for defining a short answer? Who gave the criteria? And if the marks for a short answer question is 1, and for some other paper the marks for the short answer question is 2. So what makes the difference? For a short essay, for one paper, there will be 4 marks for the same UG student undergoing the course. For a different program, the marks will be 5. And when we come to essay type questions, there will be 15 for some students, there will be 10 for some students, and there will be part type, say 1, 2, 3 subdivisions for some students, and all those, the total will be 10 or 15. So how do we say that these are essay, short essay, like that? So we have to logically define, it's our responsibility. ആരെങ്കിലും ഒക്കെ അങ്ങനെ പറയുക ഒന്നും വെച്ച് നമ്മൾ കാര്യമില്ല. അവിടെ പണ്ട് അങ്ങനെ എഴുതിയിട്ടുണ്ട്, അതുകൊണ്ട് നമ്മളും അങ്ങനെ എഴുതണമെന്നും പറയാൻ കാര്യമില്ല. It's our responsibility to analyze it logically to do the correct frame for the question. Actually, when we say that there are a short answer, essay type, or very short answer, 1 word, 2 sentence, 5 sentence, like that, actually according to the taxonomy or according to the psychological base related to this constructing knowledge, like that, there are only 2 types of questions. There are only 2 types of questions. One is selection type. What is selection type? That is, the learner has to select the answer from the question paper itself. The answers are there. The choices are there. We usually say this as MCQ, multiple choice questions, like that. So the answer is there. From A, B, C, D option, the learner can select one as the right answer. So where there is freedom for the learner to select a right answer, those types of answers are known as, questions are known as selection type. For example, see the question here. There are 3 options. So the learner can refer these 3 questions. There is 3 options, not questions, 3 options. And from among the 3, the learner can select 1. So this is selection. Which among the following is a cognitive process of the learning outcome, remembering? See the options A, B, C. Referring, recognizing, relating. And all these options seem similar. When we make it more and more similar, it will become a better distractor for the learner, so that the question, the level of the question will be improving, will become more and more higher. Even though it is something related with the remembering, and we say that the learner has to choose the answer from the bracket or from the option, it belongs to lower level thinking. But when the distractors become highly distracting for the students, that will become higher order, no doubt. So the learner has to select one from this. Can you identify the right answer?
Recognize.
Very good. Very good. Recognizing. Okay. See the second question. It is something different. It is not that was a single term or selecting a single word. Now it is something different, going to higher level. Choose the correct process related to the outcome creating. Verifies the nature of the problem. Proposes multiple useful solutions. Prepares the layout for solving the problem. Explains the consequences of the problem.
Is it the second one? Proposes multiple useful solutions.
Third one.
Okay. Any other?
Ma'am, is it third one?
Third one, ma'am. Third one.
Okay. What happened? Not visible?
It is visible, ma'am.
Okay, okay. So when the learner proposes multiple useful solutions or when prepare the layout, both can be related to creating. So both of the answers, 2 and 3, can be taken as correct. So this is how selection type questions vary. We'll go to the different types of selection type, then we will discuss there. And we know there are questions like match the following. Usually when we come to higher education level, we don't use that, but when we conduct internal assessment test, we can use that, match the following. Then for that too, the part A and part B or category A is when matching with the category B, the role of the learner is to choose one from the other section, matching. So that also become selection. And see the question D, classify the following to different types of knowledge. Even though it is a selection type question, see there are 8 items, the learner has to categorize these 8 items to 4 categories of knowledge. Some as factual knowledge, some as conceptual knowledge, some as procedural knowledge, and some metacognitive knowledge. If it is there, okay. So this is here, the items are to be appropriately categorized. So even though the answers are here or it is in the selection time, it requires higher order thinking, no doubt. So what's your answer? Let us discuss, because tomorrow we will be having a test paper. So all this will help you. What is first one? Indian Express, Hindu, Malayalam Manorama, Madhrubhumi. Which type of knowledge? Let us have a revision. Types of knowledge we have learned during the initial days. Factual. Okay, very good. Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi.
Factual.
18 people killed in Pune factory fire. Factual. 18 people killed. It is verified, no? Factual. Yeah. The major pollutants in the air include sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, carbon monoxide, etc.
Conceptual.
Conceptual, right. Advaita
Madam, it is
Siddhanta.
the factual one, ma'am.
No, it is conceptual, no, ma'am.
Yes, the major
It
pollutants
is
in
the
the air
fact only,
includes.
ma'am. These
Yeah.
are the major pollutants.
These are the major pollutants. Is there anything to add with this? These only are the major pollutants, or these are? Is anything to add with this? Is it completed? Major pollutants: sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, and carbon monoxide only? No.
Factual.
If it is
Factual.
If it is sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, and carbon monoxide only, then it is factual. If you feel that there are some more pollutants in the atmosphere, then it becomes conceptual. So you science people decide what is it. If you believe that there are some more pollutants as major pollutants, then it becomes conceptual. If sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, and carbon monoxide are the major pollutants, so If we can label these three as the major pollutants, then naturally this will factual. No problem. If anything to add with this, then it will become conceptual. Let us keep. Okay.
Factual.
Okay, factual. I agree.
Factual one.
Advaita Siddhanta? Okay, okay. Conceptual.
Concept.
Okay. Revised IT rules?
Procedural.
Let us change it. Okay, let us change it. Revision of the IT rules. Okay. Revising IT rules, that will become procedure.
Procedural one, ma'am.
Right. The internal assessment of class 12 CBSE? That's a crucial issue now.
Procedure.
Procedural, right. Online registering for COVID vaccine?
Procedural.
True.
Procedural.
True. Yes, very good. So while we come to fourth one, we have a confusion. When we go through this, we analyze each of these and we try to categorize. So here comes analysis, everything. So even the selection type of questions can clearly assess higher order thinking. No doubt. So these type of questions can be conducted in our classrooms as a part of internal assessment. After the completion of a unit or a module, of course, we can conduct these sort of selection type questions. Why? Because while we go for all competitive examinations, almost for all examinations, the section or the part one or the section one will be a question with selection type, question paper of selection type. So it's our responsibility to give some training for our students to choose the best from the many. While all options seem alike, which is to be selected? That's an important question. That's an important skill. See, what is the basic skill training program of many private institutions of Kerala connected to CBSE schools where they conduct entrance examination coaching classes? What is the basic process there? The teachers of those institutions will. Yes.
Can I ask a doubt? The previous in a test and question number 8, online registration for COVID vaccine. Can it be considered as metacognitive knowledge? Because a person who is going to register in it is using Benny. I am Benny Joseph.
Benny. Very good. So it is a very higher order thinking, because why do we register? Because I feel that I have to get the vaccine and I have to register. I feel that it's important for me. So it becomes a part of metacognitive knowledge. Congratulations for your discovery. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. Excellent observation. So this is how we make interpretations for different aspects. So while I prepared this question, my thoughts were up to procedure knowledge. We just do that procedure only. See, when I want to register it online, there is a basic motive behind that. That is truly related to metacognitive knowledge. Very good observation.
But ma'am, then in that case, like, everything is metacognitive. It will be metacognitive only, ma'am.
How revision of IT rules it's doing by some other
most of that, not all, but most of
Yes.
that, because there should be a motive, especially in procedural knowledge. Definitely, there should be a motive.
Yeah, I agree with that. But when we come to the third one, 18 people killed in Pune factory fire. So
yeah, that I agree. Those are factual only. But when sir said, I was just adding it like.
Sure. When we analyze in that way, some sort of metacognitive components will be there. But while we analyzing these 8 items, the 8th one is the best match for metacognition. Okay. So we can include these type of questions while we conduct internal assessment in our classrooms, and so that this would become a very beautiful exercise, cognitive exercise for the students, and they will try to learn many things by facing conflicts and confusions of the questions. See, that is what you have felt now. See how it helps us to improve our thought process. That itself is an important thinking process. No? So these type of questions can be included while we teachers make questions in our own classrooms. And sometimes there are questions, especially when we come to certain procedural knowledge, or sometimes when we come to the classes of history, there will be many things that are to be arranged in a particular order. And when we shuffle them and ask them to arrange it in the particular order, of course, that is a selection type question. They try to select it from the paper itself, but that involves a lot of mental processes. So these are selection type questions, right? So when we write, we write is like one word question, choose the right from the bracket like that. These are all instructions, but this is the type of question, selection type. So what is the second type of questions? Of course, it is construction type or supply type. Supply type is, I think it's an outdated terminology. When the term we use supply, it has a meaning that everything is here, I have to just supply that. But when we come to construction, it has a higher level, and the learner is supposed to be the constructors of knowledge. So the learner has to construct answer for the question, right? So there the learner has to use his own words, his own phrases. He or she try to retrieve information from the memory and try to include or integrate meaning by making sentences. So this is construction. Part A. These are the types of questions we usually use. Part A. Answer in one word.
No slides are not available.
You cannot say the construction type?
No, not at.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Not at?
No, ma'am.
It hasn't come.
No, ma'am.
Is it visible now?
Okay.
Now it's visible.
Okay.
Now it's visible.
So when we come to construction type, there is the other word is supply type. So the better terminology is construction type. The learner construct the responses according to his perception. Then what are the different types in that? Part A usually consists of questions like this. Answer in one word. To revise the Bloom's taxonomy, and the mark will be, of course, proportionate to the response. So the one mark is adequate. To revise the Bloom's taxonomy is a question where the answer is expected in one word. The mark will be 1. Okay. Answer in brief. That's again another clear indication regarding the way the learner has to write the answer. Using 2 sentences. It's not compulsory that you have to add that, but answer in brief. That is a better usage for very short answer or short essay. And if the marks 2 or 3, you can elaborate that with or by adding the clear or specific meaning of that. What is meant by brief? You can use 2 sentences. You can write 3 sentences like that. Then what does it indicate? Each sentence should include at least one specific attribute. Otherwise, the 2 marks have no meaning. When the student is expected to write the answer in 2 sentences, we specifically guide the students to the correct answer, and we say that the direction implied that there should be 2 sentences, and 1 sentence. In each sentence there should be the specific attribute of the question, the answer. So here we give the specific direction towards getting the marks, and this is the way by which they practice the expression of value points. The students become more aware of the value points. So what are the differences between Bloom's taxonomy of 1956 and 2001? There may be many differences, but I give the freedom for the students to mention at least 2 and using 2 sentences. When the marks is given as 2, the student will write 2 differences. So that can be mentioned as answer in brief. Now, when we go to part B, part C, usually we give the title part B, short answer, short essay, or problem type like that. Give the clear direction. Answer in detail. To what extent? Maximum you can use 20 to 25 sentences. Or for some papers, the number of words are given. Answer in 100 words, 200 words like that. But the problem is that for one paper, answer is 200 words, the marks will be 4. And the next question is part C. Answer in 300 words, the marks is 10. So how can we compare that? If you write in 200 words, you will get 5 marks. If you write in 300 words, you will get 10 marks. This is taken from MG University question paper. Marks, write in 200 words, 5 marks, write in 300 words, 10 marks. So these sort of anomalies have to be identified, and we have to give a clarity for that. Answer in detail using 20-25 sentences, or solve the problems with essential steps. If it includes certain problems and it varies according to the subject, you can give up to 4 or 5 marks according to the system scheme. And when we come to part C, it is a set type question, and it indicates or it expects that the learner has to answer it elaborately. And for language, Malayalam like that, I have seen that it is written in pages. That's good. It is given that you have to മൂന്ന് പുറത്തിൽ കവിയാതെ എഴുതുക എന്ന് പറയാൻ അതിനോട് എനിക്ക് യോജിപ്പില്ല. കവിഞ്ഞാൽ നമ്മൾ എന്തെങ്കിലും നടപടി എടുക്കുന്നുണ്ടോ? ഇല്ലല്ലോ. അപ്പൊ അത് ശരിയല്ലെന്ന് എനിക്ക് പലപ്പോഴും തോന്നിയിട്ടുണ്ട്. അതെന്തിനാ അത് പറയുന്നത്? 3 പുറത്തിൽ കവിയാതെ എഴുതുക. മിനിമം പറയാം, അത് ഇൻ ബിറ്റ്വീൻ പറയാം. അതിനല്ലാതെ കവിയാതെ എഴുതണമെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ കുട്ടി എത്രയോ കവിഞ്ഞെഴുതുന്നു. 3 പുറത്തിൽ കവിയാതെ എഴുതുക എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ 1 പുറത്തിൽ എഴുതാം, 2 പുറത്തിൽ എഴുതാം, 3.5 പുറത്തിലൊക്കെ എഴുതാം. So that is not specific. Answer elaborately കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ട് 20 to 25 sentences എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിരിക്കുന്നത് പോലെ within 2.5-3 pages, 2.5 minimum, 3 maximum. That is the clear or the specific direction to be given. Anyway, you have to analyze these sort of directions that we give in the question paper so that the students get a clear understanding related to the procedure of writing the answer, how to write it, how to express it. And sometimes for some subjects, I think the questions can be divided like this. And see, I have observed in many question papers that there is one question 22, and it includes a lot of things. What are the different types, and suggest 3 like that. So the single question consists of numerous aspects. Then we can subdivide it into components of different subtypes so that the students get a clear picture of answering the question, as well as it is very easy to prepare the value points, and the evaluation also is very easy. So when we try to add lot of things to a single question, explain with diagram the process and steps of preparation and the merits and demerits of like these sort of questions are not clear. So we have to analyze the question and we can present it in a very systematic way so that the learner get a clear picture of what to write and how to write and for what marks, what is expected from me. That will clearly indicated in the question paper, and this would help the learner to answer it clearly. And usually we do not use MCQ or MSQ. MSQ is multiple, MCQ is multiple choice question. MSQ is multiple selection question. That is, there are more than one correct answer. They are MSQ. MSQ is very good for conducting internal examinations. For example, if you want to conduct an MSQ of 50 marks, 25 questions are enough because each question carries 2 marks because there will be 2 right answers for each question. So with 25 questions, we can assess 50 marks questions, 50 marks answers, right? So that is multiple selection question. And usually we don't have a MCQ in university examinations, I think, but as I have mentioned earlier, for all competitive examinations, the most important challenge for a learner is attempting this MCQ or MSQ. So we have to give adequate practice for that.
Madam?
Yes.
Can I interrupt? There was actually multiple choice
sure.
questions up to some 2014. There was multiple choice questions in the question paper of MG University.
Yes, after 2015, they made wide changes in the question paper framing. Anyway, we can see while there are MCQ in the question paper, it is observed that there is wide copying between the students, and that first part will surely give 9 or 8 marks out of 10, and after that the learner has to get 5 or 6 marks. If there is 16 marks, we will give 2 or 3 marks for as moderation, and naturally students will get a pass mark. So this tendency is to be avoided. That was the thought then. And anyway, all sort of questions have its own merits, and I think this see, that was discussing earlier, all those entrance examination coaching centers taxing huge amount of money from the parents, from the public, and what actually their process. They give training for the students to attend MCQ questions. Each day they will be giving 5 or 6 types of questions, 6 sets of question papers, and by going through this naturally the students get the familiarity with going through the multiple choice questions. The time taken for attending the question will be getting reduced, and at the end of 1 or 2 years, they will become experts to handle these sort of questions. So this is actually the psychology behind entrance examination coaching centers, which are also connected with the CBSE schools, where they give foundation course from 6th or 7th standard itself, no? And from that class itself, they are giving the training for MCQ questions. That is the only training. So when we give opportunities for our students to attend these questions in our classroom, naturally that would help them to attend different kinds of competitive examinations, all sort of bank test, PSC test, staff selection commission test, like army test. There are railway, secretariat, different tests are in this manner. So anyway, if there is no option in the university, we can conduct in our classroom for assessment in learning or off learning or for learning. Of course, assessment of learning is given by the question paper of the university. There is no option. Let us leave it. But for other two, we can use it. And the preparation of the MCQ question is a very thought-provoking exercise, how it becomes meaningful, because while we select the STEM key and distractors, we have to be very careful. What is meant by the STEM? STEM is the statement or the question given in the question, ask the question. It's the question part, and there should be a question form. That is the STEM. And usually we have to avoid filling the blanks aspect in the STEM. The STEM should be completed as such. We can use the question word, which is the highest thinking level of Bloom's taxonomy, which can be avoided, the highest thinking level of Bloom's taxonomy. But dash is the highest thinking level of Bloom's taxonomy. That is not a good question. That is not supposed to be a good STEM. So while we use MCQ questions, the dash fill gap should be avoided. The question should be framed in such a manner that it will become completed by getting the distractor, the key from the options. So when we answer the question, which is the highest thinking level of Bloom's taxonomy? A, B, C, D, which is the right answer? C.
B. Hello.
Oh,
C.
C.
B.
C.
C.
Good.
As per the revised Bloom's taxonomy, it is create.
Yes.
C. Create.
As per the Bloom's taxonomy, it is evaluate.
Evaluate.
Very good, very good. Very good observation. Then the key should be placed randomly for various questions. That is, if the answer for the first question is option B, while we continue the same B option as the right, naturally the students will get the chance of guessing that all answers will be B. So if one is A, the other should be B, other should be C. The right answer should be placed randomly. And the distractors should have some level of similarity. That should create certain level of confusion among the students. For example, see the options of the question, who revised the taxonomy of Bloom? Anderson, Benjamin, Tagore, Simpson. See the distractors, which is the odd one?
Tagore.
Tagore, right.
Tagore.
Yes.
Not on.
So while we select a distractor, always think about its matching with other distractors, so that the learner gets confused. That is our purpose. The learner should have to select the right one, and there should be some sort of thinking processes while selecting the best one. While going through the question, some level of disequilibrium should be there, and by writing the or selecting the right answer, the learner has to identify or get the equilibrium stage. Equilibrium, that is the cognitive process. So the distractors should be similar. Then it should be presented in a logical way. That means while we go through A, B, C, D, if possible, if we feel that no other problem is existing, then they should be presented in alphabetic order, chronological order, like that. So students get the feeling that this is presented in such a manner that it's given as alphabetic order, the right one is to be selected. And uniform length of the distractors, that also is important. While we go through the question papers of the university, we have seen that some of the questions are very lengthy and some are very short. Here, here we see that if the distractors are of similar or the uniform length, it is very difficult to find out which one is the right answer. But if there is an answer which is more lengthier than the other answers, naturally the students get a feel that this would be the right answer. Otherwise, all other options have 2 or 3 words, while this particular answer has 7 words, which shows that this is significant. That's why it's included. So the length of the distractors should be more or less same. See this question, choose the correct process related to the outcome creating. We have answered the question earlier. This was the question. Choose the correct process related to the outcome creating. I have presented the same question, same stem in a different manner here. Choose the correct process related to the outcome creating. Same question.
Excuse
but
me.
the options are, yes.
Ma'am, can you make the sound a bit louder? In my side, the sound is feeble. I'm not sure if it's my problem or no.
Okay, thank you. What about other people? Is it audible?
Yes, ma'am, it's audible.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, while we go through this particular question, see the distractors. The first one, the learner verifies. Second one, the learner proposes. Third one, the learner prepares. The learner explains. And while we use the same terminology, the learner from 1, 2, 3, 4, it is to be avoided. There is no need of repeating the same word or the same beginning in all questions. This can be included as a part of the question. Choose the correct process related to the outcome creating, related to a learner. Or the learner is not necessary there. So we have to avoid these sort of repetitions because this is not relevant while we come to the distractors. Yes. I have also mentioned the importance of MSQ. MSQ is multiple selection questions where the learner have the opportunity or have the freedom to choose 2 right answers. So if there are 2 right answers, you can give a score of 2. Of course, you can make an MSQ with 4 options where 3 answers are right. So if you are giving all the 3 answers as right, you will get 3 marks. But the problem is that out of 4, only 1 is wrong. So naturally, if the score is 3, the student will get a minimum of 2. At least he or she will get a minimum of 2. That's why out of 4 options, 2 can be selected as the right. So MSQ can be limited to 2. Otherwise, the number of options should be increased up to 5 or 6. So MSQ for 2 is okay. While we give 6 options, it would take more time for the learners to go through the distractors, and the time will be more than 2 hours or 3 hours it will take to complete the test. Okay. Now, I have already mentioned that while we prepare the MCQ test, the STEM should be free from fill in the blanks type. And usually we don't use fill in the blanks. I think it's not included in school level 2. But it has importance and significance while we use it for assessment for learning. How it can be applied in our classroom. Assessment for learning is It is to be done. I have mentioned in the morning session that we have to assess the students in the classroom. After each class, we can make assessment whether they are getting our concepts, getting the subject matter transacted in the classroom. That is known as assessment for learning. And we provide immediate feedback for that. If it is assessment of learning, the result will be getting after some time, after a few months or after a few days. And now in COVID period, we know it is after half year like that. So in assessment for learning, we provide immediate feedback. Then only it becomes assessment for learning. The immediate feedback will help the learner to make the corrections immediately. So that will help him to learn the concept effectively. So this is something that usually I practice in my classroom. Assessment for learning. How? Suppose my topic for today is Bloom's taxonomy, and I have given a class for 40 or 45 minutes. And after that, I will distribute this paper for my students. The purpose is to complete the missing portions so that I can check whether their level of understanding or their awareness about the topic is completely filled. So most of the portions will be filled, but some of the parts will be missing. The role of the student is to identify or complete the missing parts. Bloom's taxonomy in bracket 19 dash is revised by Anderson Krathwohl in 2001. See, while I give this particular sheet of paper for the student, see only half page is enough for this, and I can print maximum 3 or 4 same paragraphs in a single sheet. I can give it to 4 students. Okay, then it is not very expensive. That's why I'm saying like this. So the first sentence is Bloom's taxonomy dash is revised by Anderson and Krathwohl in 2001. By reading through this statement itself, the learner is getting a chance to revise or summarize what is transacted in the class. The only thing needed is to add 19, there are 56. But here it is written in bold letter, Anderson and Krathwohl. This is getting printed in the memory of the learner. And it goes from the sensory memory to the short-term memory. Now it is in the short-term memory there. And sometimes the word Anderson and Krathwohl, this may not be very, this may seem abstract for the learner, the spelling like that. So when I give it, the spelling become very clear and the student get a chance to see it in the right way. The lower level in the original taxonomy knowledge was changed to dash. Again, the learner has to complete that. Synthesis is the process of combining different things in a unique way and is equivalent to create. There is a gap, sorry. So that is equivalent to create. Thus, synthesis is replaced with dash, the highest process of the new taxonomy. Here the learner can easily transfer the word create here. And sequentially, he arranges the concepts easily. The various levels of the taxonomy are represented in terms of cognitive processes. Hence, it is called the dash process domain. The various levels of the taxonomy are represented in terms of cognitive processes. Hence, it is called the cognitive process dimension. The cognitive process dimension includes dash levels. Student has a choice, 4 or 5 or 6. Select from that. I have given remember, analyze, evaluate is there. Then the student has to complete 2, 3, and 6. So when I distribute this paper and when the student tries to complete the sheet of paper, immediately after the completion, the teacher discusses the right answers. The students get a chance to self-check their answer. They try to correct their answer. The correct responses will be recorded in this sheet of paper. And this paper will serve as a summary of the class. The summary paper is with the student. While going through this paper, the rehearsal will take place. And naturally, the short-term memory, those things registered in the short-term memory will go to long-term memory. And if the students get a collection of these types of papers, that will be highly helpful for the revision period. And when something is written in own handwriting, that makes more valuable for the students and the sensory registration become more easier. Hence, in this sheet of paper, some contributions of the learner is there. If it is a printed note, that is a pure copy of the note of the teacher, and there is no contribution from the part of the learner. But if there are some gaps like this and the student completes it, it is just like a worksheet. And the worksheet has its own potentiality to promote the retrieval ability of the students. So this acts as assessment for learning. And psychologically saying, if I repeat these sort of activities in the classroom, after 2 or 3 classes, students get a feel that after 40 minutes, the teacher will do an assessment like this. So I have to attend the class. I have to listen the lecturing. I have to observe the words written on the board like that. Though this will act as a motivational component for the students. So whenever possible, these sort of simple sheets, worksheets, can be distributed in the class, and this will serve the purpose of assessment for learning. And this is the way by which we can use even the fill in the blanks type questions in our classroom, so that we can ensure that the learning is progressing naturally. These are some important factors to be included while we prepare the question. The sentence construction of the question is very important. Use simple language and structure so that the meaning is clearer for them. If there are big sentences or big questions like prepare the diagram, plan, procedure, merits, demerits, we have to split to shorter sentences. So a lot of condensed information should not be included in the same question. Always try to eliminate superfluous words and abstract or metaphorical language which are not necessary in a question, especially while we are handling abstract subjects like mathematics, science. If it is a language related one, of course, the purpose is to enhance the linguistic skills of the students, and sometimes we have to use certain metaphorical language or as given by some poets or some writers. And we have to make sure that introductory statements and questions contain only the information which is required for answering those questions relevantly. So unnecessary informations are to be eliminated from all introductory statements. This would help the learners to answer the questions in a more easier way. While going through the questions, they get a feel that it seems easier, or it can be easily identified, and the process of examination become very easier for them. We say that framing the question paper is an art. The last FTP was titled as Art of Framing Questions. How does it become an art? We were discussing about the science of discussing the question paper. It becomes science because it has a systematic procedure. For the preparation of the question paper, we have to follow correct sequences and steps. There is a procedural knowledge. Then it becomes science. How it becomes an art? എന്തും ഒരു കലയാകുന്ന എപ്പോഴാണ്?
Our own skills including.
Yes, including skills. Okay. Anything else? എന്തെങ്കിലുമൊക്കെ പറയൂ, ഉറക്കം വരത്തില്ലേ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ? എങ്ങനെയാണ്
When it appears in its natural flow. Ma'am.
Yeah, when it appears in the natural way. That's good interpretation. Okay, very good. When those person who are watching or they feel that it is appealing, it is pleasant for them. അപ്പോൾ ഒരു കല എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ അതിനൊരു എസ്തെറ്റിക് സെൻസ് ഉണ്ടാവണം, ആസ്വാദകർക്ക് അത് നല്ല അനുഭവമായിട്ട് മാറണം അല്ലേ? ഇവിടെ ആരാണ് ആസ്വാദകർ? ഹു ആർ ദ ബെനിഫിഷ്യറീസ് ഓഫ് ദ ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ പേപ്പർ? ദ സ്റ്റുഡൻസ്. അവരെ സംബന്ധിച്ച് ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ പേപ്പർ ആസ്വാദികരമാകൂ അല്ലേ? That is very difficult. But if the question framing is appropriate and it follows the sequence rightly, the students get the feel that it is not very difficult. It can be, I can handle it in a very easy way. I can give the answer. That doesn't mean that the examination is easy, but get a satisfaction that I can answer it effectively. From the acquired knowledge, I could retrieve the necessary information and I could attend all the questions. So this gives a satisfaction for the learner. And this sort of satisfaction is the artistic component related to examinations. So it's our responsibility to make it artistic by preparing more scientific questions so that it becomes more artistic for the students. And when we come to the preparation of the question paper, the next important thing is the preparation of specification grid, or how do we frame a question paper? How many marks should be given? What should be the weightage to low order question? What should be the importance to higher order question? How many questions can be selected for part A, like that? These sort of planning is essential for the preparation of a question paper. And usually we say that we need a blueprint for the preparation of question paper. And when we come to higher education level, I think the specification grid is the better terminology for that, because why do we prepare a blueprint? It includes a lot of aspects related to the framing of the question paper. But when we come to the framing of the question paper specifically, it includes certain specifications. By observing this specification grid, we can easily identify the different components behind the planning of the question paper. So specification grid is same as blueprint, but it is taken as a usage that clearly shows that this grid gives the specific meaning of different constituent parts of the question paper. So what is the sequence of preparation of the question paper? First, we have to decide the course or the module for which we are conducting the test. After each module, we can conduct a test related to internal assessment. Or after the course, before the university examination, we conduct model examination. So plan that. What is the nature of the test, whether it should be related to the whole course or related to a module, that is to be fixed first. That is selection of the content, first one. Then based on that, analyzing the content will naturally help us to fix the outcomes to evaluate. Today we have to submit an assignment, a task related to the preparation of the outcomes. While we go through the content, that clearly shows that certain outcomes are to be assessed to ensure that the learner has learned this particular topic. In the morning, some of you have mentioned that while selecting this particular unit or while analyzing this unit, it seems that there are no components related to create. Of course, that may be happen. So sometimes there may be create. So fix the outcomes to evaluate from that module, that course, but that subject matter. which all outcomes are to be evaluated, that is to be identified. Then the next is what should be the total marks and time. Usually if it is for 50 marks, 2 hours are enough. But for any examination that has more than 50 marks, the time should be more than 2 hours. So think about the marks, time, relationship and proportionality. Okay. Then we have to distribute the marks according to outcomes because it is outcome based assessment. And usually we say that there are 3 types of questions according to difficulty level: easy, average, difficult. As I have mentioned yesterday, it is not fair to say that the teacher himself or herself prepared some easy questions and some difficult questions for the students of the classroom. In spite of that, we have to think in a different manner. There are some questions that can be answered with minimum effort. Just a recall or recognizing is enough. They can be termed as low order question, low order thinking. And there are some questions where moderate effort from the part of the learner is required. They are known as middle order thinking. And for some questions, the learner has to think as his own. He has to relate the subject matter of the textbook to his real life or to different context and to prepare something new. That is, the learner has to answer with maximum effort. These are higher order thinking questions. We know that majority of the students belong to this average level, or while we cater the needs of those students, we cannot say that we have to give questions where maximum effort is required. So always the classroom activities are oriented, focusing upon the majority. Hence, the questions of middle order thinking will be given a priority and will give nearly 50% marks for that. That is, half of the questions can be handled by all students. We expect that each student has the capacity for that. And plus 30% low order thinking, that can be answered with minimum effort. So 50 plus 30, 80%. So an average student is free to attend 80% of the questions, 80% marks, because they belong to middle order and low order. Low order questions are possible for all students. Plus 50 means an average student can attend up to 80% of the questions or marks. The remaining 20% require maximum effort in the sense that they can be assessed in terms of creating or evaluating like that. Usually, when we come to outcomes, we say that remember and understand are low order thinking level. This is the classification given in different types of question paper framing processes, especially the question paper framing of CBSE and some other national level organizations say that remember and understand belong to low order thinking. But don't confine with that thinking, because sometimes when we come to certain levels of understanding, that will naturally go to higher order thinking. So that is why I have mentioned at the beginning itself that these are not the rules and regulations. Some questions of understanding can be converted to higher order thinking and can be taken as higher order thinking. and understand and apply. So sometimes understand and apply becomes middle order thinking, but same apply comes in higher order thinking too. Anyway, analysis, evaluate, and create are usually considered as higher order thinking. Without any confusion, we can say that analysis, evaluate, and create belong to higher order thinking. But sometimes those questions come under understand and apply also become middle order or higher order. But remember, is always in the low order thinking. And if, see, while we deal with the MCQ, MSQ like that, we see that majority of the questions have the level of remembering, but still the selection of the answer require higher order thinking. So that also can be converted to higher level. So we cannot restrict these levels to low order, middle order, high order thinking like that. Usually, for example, who revised Bloom's taxonomy, that is remember. So that is a low order thinking. So similarly, while we give priority to questions, this can be considered. The low order thinking or the 30% of the question can be of remember, understand. Or again, plus 50 can be from apply, up to apply 50% can be given. So the remaining 20% is related to, 20% will be related to analysis, evaluate, and create. Or if possible, we can include 20% of the questions related to analysis, evaluate, and sometimes there is no possibility for create in the written examination. Okay, we can leave it. If you believe that there are some scope, then you can include it. Anyway, there is possibility for analysis and evaluation, I think, whatever subject it is. Then the message is that we have to include a few questions related to higher order thinking. At the same time, the low order thinking and middle order thinking level questions have the possibility of becoming higher order. So when we frame the questions like that, that will naturally become higher order thinking. So we can practice that so that it becomes a part of the higher order thinking too. So thinking of that 20% thus now become more higher value. When we want to develop higher order thinking skills among the students, the question framing related to remember, understand, and apply also can be make more creative so that it becomes a higher order thinking question. Now we have to distribute the marks based on the content. That should be based on the hours and the credit that we give in the scheme. Where is the maximum credit? Where lies the maximum credit and how many hours we spend for that? So those parts where we give maximum efforts. For example, a unit, in order to cover that unit, we take 22 hours. There is another unit, for that we take only 10 hours. So naturally, the unit having 22 hours effort, there should be more marks from that particular unit. Then we have to distribute section. How many questions are to be there for part A? What should be in part B? And what should be in part C? We have to decide the total number of questions to be included in part A, part B, and part C. Thus, the specification grade indicates what are the learning outcomes to be tested, which are the subject matter, the weightage to the learning outcomes and the content areas in terms of its relative importance. So, the relative importance of the content and the outcomes are to be clearly identified through the specification grid. And after that, after preparing the questions based on this, thus, first fix the learning outcomes, select the content first, then select the learning outcomes,
She's breaking.
And hello, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. First, select the module which is to be practiced, which is to be included in the test. Fix the learning outcomes, and according to the learning outcomes, select the subject matter to be tested. Initially, we have to select the module as a whole, which part of which section of that. Then after fixing the learning outcomes, we have to select the subject matter. And then according to the learning outcomes and content areas, the relative importance is to be fixed and the questions are to be framed like that. Now, certain general instructions are compulsory. Otherwise, the students will not get the clear picture of writing the answers. What is part A? What is part B? What is part C? That can be given at the beginning itself. While we go to all India examinations like civil service.
Voice is not clear, ma'am.
Pardon? Am I clearly audible now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. While we go for all national level tests like civil services examinations or competitive examinations of the state level or national level, there are certain general instructions. So if these sort of general instructions are in our question paper, naturally we will be giving an opportunity for the students to get a training so that they can appear similar tests in their future. So I think there should be a general subtitle like general instructions. Part A contains 12 questions, answer any 10. Each question carries 2 marks. Part B contains 9 questions, answer any 5. Each question carries 5 marks. And what is in part C? These sort of guidance will help to get a clear picture at the beginning of the test itself. And this will help the learners to proceed the question paper with more accuracy and precision. The general instructions will guide them. So this will provide a metacognitive knowledge, because while he see this at the beginning itself, he see answer any 10, it contains 2 marks. So he get the awareness that he has to give only 2 points for that. Answer any 5, each question carries 5 marks. There are 9 questions. So he will manage the time because there are 9 questions and 5 marks. It has 45 marks altogether. So that is the part where more marks can be scored. So I have to spend more time related to that. All these are metacognitive knowledge related to writing the examinations. So when we frame questions in outcome-based education or by giving importance to outcomes like that, initially we have to train our students to take part in examinations in the proper way. And I think this is one of the most important skills to be developed among the students. Test taking techniques. That training should be given during your bridge course itself. What are test taking techniques? How to see the question paper, how to read it effectively. What are the ways by which we can answer for a question in a more effective way?
Madam, new slide did not come.
Yeah, there is no slide, sir. Don't worry. Okay. No new slides. Now the slides, I will end the slideshow and we'll have the discussion then. Okay. Yes. So when we believe that the outcome-based education is to be practiced and the question papers are to be framed in a very effective way, simultaneously we have to equip our students to practice these sort of outcome-based assessment methods these types of outcome-based question papers like that. So how to attend examinations properly and what are the different test taking techniques that is to be given at the beginning of the exam, beginning of the course itself. And sometimes there are directions in the question papers like write half a page, write 2 pages, write 3 pages like that. So students should get a familiarity with the nature of the university paper. They are attending the examination after their +2 courses and they are not familiar with the size, the layout of the university answer sheet. So before the first examination, to get familiarity with the nature of the question paper and the answer sheet, that should be displayed for the students so that they get a clear perception, so that the half page or 2 pages that includes these number of lines or these number of words are necessary. So this sort of familiarity will help them to face the examination in more easier way. What are the different ways by which we make our answers more precise and attractive? What is the economical way of presenting the answers? There are 4 or 5 pages of answers for a particular question, but the question has only 5 marks. So how can I present that particular answer with the help of a graphic designer and a brief explanation so that I can catch 4.5 marks? So this is the economical way of representing the information in the answer sheet. So while we go through the answer sheet, we get impressed by the presentation skill of the student, and a simple graphic design will include all the main points naturally that shows that the student has the capacity to summarize everything. And after that, brief descriptions are there. So it's adequate for 5 marks. So these sort of techniques are to be developed during the beginning of the course itself. That is our responsibility as teachers. We also have some familiarity with the different methods to enhance their ability to appear for the examinations in an effective way. What are the different ways by which we structure sentences when we write the examination? Most of the students say that they have the expressions, they have the ideas within them, but they are unable to express it properly. So that affects, of course, their marks. So how to frame sentences effectively while we write the answers? That is to be trained. So this also is an important aspect of outcome-based education. While we try to improve the quality of the question paper, simultaneously we have to help our learners to improve their study skills, study habits, learning related habits, their skills in attention, concentration, like that, their skills in note taking, their skills in attending the examination, time management. All these are very important. And when we come to a paper pencil test, this is very important. But when we come to other aspects of the internal assessment, how to prepare for a seminar, how to present a seminar effectively, all these are important, and we can use different tools like self-check or peer evaluation tool that we have discussed yesterday for improving the performance in these type of activities in the classroom. So these are some guidelines for framing the question paper, and these are some guidelines only, not these are not rules or clearly framed regulations regarding the question paper. It depends on the quality of the teacher and the innovation of the teacher that decides the quality of the question paper. So we have to fix the outcomes, we have to set the outcomes, we have to measure the outcomes. The method is to be selected appropriately according to the nature of the students, according to the nature of the discipline, and matching the institutional program and the course outcomes. And while framing the question paper, Of course, it's the responsibility of the university. The university assign a team for preparing the question paper, and the team will prepare that, and we become distributors of the question paper. Okay, let it there. We hope that there will be positive changes, and we believe that that will happen. But at the same time, as a teacher of my students, what can I do to ensure the outcomes through these ways by framing a question paper in the right manner? This was the purpose of the present exercise. And if you have any doubts, you can ask now. Or if you want to add something, of course, many of you are members of the question paper setting committees, academic bodies, and of course, you might have something to add with this. Please contribute so that we all get benefits from that. Anything to share? ഉറക്കമാണോ എല്ലാരും?
No, madam. We listen like.
Yes. Okay.
Miss, shall I ask you one question?
Yes.
It's myself, Hema, St. Peter's College, Kolanjeri. My question is something entirely different. We have been discussing about how to frame a very standard question paper and how to make the students give a very clear answer and things like that. But something different, another different issue, I mean, the different problem is also there with from the standpoint of the students. When we ask the students to give answers for the question paper, sometimes they point out that they find it very difficult to understand because most of the question, we know that the university question papers and everything is drafted in Malayalam. They find it very difficult to understand what exactly is given there in the questions. That is also some very basic problem that very often we meet with. How to deal with this kind of problems, ma'am? Because language is a very important, I find that it's a very important barrier for them to acquire knowledge and things like that. How to deal with this issue?
I would like to get one clarification.
Yes, ma'am.
All question papers are in Malayalam. No, I think it's bilingual. No, some question papers are no. All question papers are in Malayalam.
No, my area is history, so the question papers are in English only.
Questions are always asked in English, ma'am.
Yeah.
Students are writing answers. Yeah, students are writing answers in Malayalam.
But the problem is that they are not capable enough to understand what is
the meaning of the question, right?
Would be able to understand. Yeah. It's like that. If they would be able to understand what is there in the question, then only they would be able to give the answer.
Sure. Yeah.
Very serious problem, I think.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
I also agree with that. This is a crucial issue that we are facing. See, in our college or when we come to B.Ed level, majority of the students have post-graduation and all of them possess more than 90% marks, but they always ask the question, do we have options to write the answers in Malayalam? See, this is the most important challenge we face, and many of the technical terms have no accurate Malayalam translations. When we translate those terminologies from our subjects, it is very difficult to get the clear translation in Malayalam too. But students have the freedom to write the answer in Malayalam. And more than that, we know the new education policy promotes bilingual learning. So after 4 or 5 years, it is compulsory that all teachers should teach in Malayalam or mother tongue too, so that the bilingual mode of teaching should be promoted in our state. In any state it is, the bilingual mode of learning is to be promoted, and quality textbooks should be there in the mother tongue too. So this will make bigger problem for us because the students will prefer the textbooks in mother tongue. Some students will prefer textbooks in mother tongue and they will try to learn in that. But the question papers will be in English, and of course, when this is going to happen, then naturally the question papers, there will be option for the question papers too in mother tongue. For example, when we go to the question papers of higher secondary level or some school level, there are many examinations like TET, SET, etc. There also the questions are translated in mother tongue. So naturally, this will become a process in the future. The students get a chance to get the questions in Malayalam too. So here we teachers have to frame the questions in Malayalam, that we become overburdened by this sort of linguistic issues, right? Then the thing is that since the all educational policies promote the use of mother tongue. So whenever we face these challenges, we teachers have to explain some important conceptual knowledge. I think there is no need of explaining the facts, all these things related to, these are easy for them to understand in mother tongue too. But when we come to conceptual knowledge, we are compelled to use mother tongue too in the classroom. So it would be easier for them to understand the concept when we explain in the bilingual mode. So this requires that the teacher should be proficient in the mother tongue and the other language too. And nowadays the students are unable to understand the question because, as you mentioned earlier, they are not aware of the real meaning of the question, and that can be solved by giving more awareness related to the different concepts, and or by giving chances for them to go through the questions and giving translations related to that. So if some students are there who are willing to write the answers in the Malayalam, we cannot discourage them. Anyway, it is our responsibility to help them to get the question in a proper way so that we can get the clear or the right translation of those words. So it is possible, teachers can contribute to that sometimes. Or in future, I hope that there will be textbooks written in bilingual mode, and that will be helping for them. So this will be going to be a crucial issue, and there will be no solution for that. But the issue will become more deeper while we provide opportunity for them to write the answers in Malayalam. The questions also will be in Malayalam. Then the role of the teacher become more and more crucial. I think the teacher responsibility become more important. When the teacher completely explain everything in English language, it would be difficult for them to understand because they will be following the Malayalam text. And at the same time, we say that we have to prepare our students to global citizens, and the English language as a global language, we have to promote the linguistic competencies among the students. I always believe that we have to help our students to enhance their knowledge and their practices in English language, because that will provide a level of confidence among them. So as teachers, I think there is no need of compromising our quality for coming to the standard or the level of the students by reducing the quality of our language. We can help them. Otherwise, it's our responsibility. While I always believe that if the teacher possesses good language, it's the best opportunity for the students to listen to the class and improve their language. So I usually tell my students that use this sort of language while you write answers. This word should be there. This is a good word. This is a good English word. Don't make a substitute for that word. You have to use it. And students, after some time, after attending some interview, or after going for a CBSE school teaching like that, they after make the comment that this practice was nice for us, because we get the confidence to use it in a very free way. So I think even though it's a problem, of course, there will be, as I have mentioned in the morning, there will be some policy guidelines from the authority to solve these sort of issues. Anyway, as teachers, I think we should help them to enhance their language either the way. ഏതെങ്കിലും ഒന്നെങ്കിലും അറിയാതിരിക്കണം കേട്ടോ. രണ്ടും അറിയാൻ വയ്യാത്ത കുട്ടികളാണ് നമ്മൾ നേരിടുന്ന പ്രശ്നം. അവർക്ക് ഇംഗ്ലീഷും അറിയത്തില്ല, മലയാളം അറിയത്തില്ല. So we have to enhance their language skills through different strategies. We can give the lecturing in English, and after that we may provide an explanation in Malayalam so that both categories get the meaning of that. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am, I'm Robin Stios. I presume the doubts are over. Doubts of the participants are over. So it is the time for gratitude, man. Shall I proceed?
Sure, sure.
Okay, ma'am, it was a very valuable session. You come across all the technical parts of the question paper framing, the important things that you have to remember, and the tips to how to build the questionnaire. So it was a very valuable session, and I always observed that you try to touch the three dimensions: cognitive, affective, and psychomotor dimensions of our participants. So, and also you share your valuable thoughts when you take class. So it is all an inspiration for our participants to emulate Bloom's taxonomy in our teaching practice. So on behalf of Stride, SSUS Gallery, and all participants, I express my sincere gratitude to you, ma'am. And also I thank the organizers who are taking hardships to coordinate this program. So we value your effort. Thank you. And all the participants who are very much interactive. We know that the active participation of the learners will promote make the class more live. So I thank all, and especially thank you to Rasma ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you, dear friends. See you tomorrow. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.